Well, we're taking a little trip today to show you an inherited flower bed or shrub bed. And unfortunately, I have to say this is at my house, and I'm going to be showing you some things that are wrong. But I just moved into the house not too long ago, and some of you may have done the very same thing. And I'm going to show you some of the things that you're going to want to look at in your flower or shrub beds before you just start planting plants. And right here is a good place to start. Now, there's some really good plant material in this shrub bed. I've got some beautiful dwarf Yopon hollies, and I really like those, and I'm going to want to save those, but I'm probably going to move them around, and the best time to move them would be either earlier in the spring or this fall. But there's some other things in this bed that I want to address even before that, and this is a very common thing that occurs when you're installing shrub or flower beds. And you can see here as we look that the actual level of this flower bed is below the level of the yard. And that can be a really big problem, and you can see why right down here. You notice how, and it has been raining quite a bit, we've got quite a bit of water just standing in this bed because the level is lower than the level of our lawn. Now, this is very common. You'll kill the Bermuda grass or whatever, and you'll dig all that out and then just start planting into the bed, and what happens is that bed is lower and it will trap water, and you can see the water can't even get out of here very well. And this is not a good situation for our shrubs in here. Now, as we move on back closer to the house, I'll show you some more of this problem. It's not only bad for the flower bed, but it's also not good to have the water trapped up close to the house. Now, the good thing about it is that the gutters come down and they don't drain directly into the bed, they drain out into the lawn. But our problem is that our bed is actually lower, so it comes back in. And you can see we've got some standing water right here. Now, this used to be a Japanese maple. However, you can see what happened here is it's planted lower, and so it just has a little place that it doesn't drain, and this probably drowned out. And one of the other things is, even if it's a dry season, which it was last summer, right here is where our hose hooks up. And the hose tends to drip a little bit, so this area stays wet most of the time. So those are some things that you're going to want to take into consideration. One, the level of the bed, and two, where your hoses are, where they hook up. Check and see if that's a place that stays wet all the time. Now, what we're going to want to do with this bed is come in, and also the soil hasn't been amended very much, so we're going to want to add a lot of compost and work this bed up until we've got the level of it just slightly higher than our lawn, and then we can plant into it. One, we'll have some nice amended, well-drained soil, and two, it will drain on out into the lawn. Now, something else that we want to look at is right back here. And you see we've got a really nice Nandina here, and from the front, it's pretty. It's actually in bloom right now. And this looks like a nice plant for this location. But as we move on over here to the side, you can see that we're developing a little bit of a problem. And we'll come right on down here. You can see how the whole Nandina just kind of leans out towards the sun. And when it was smaller, this probably wasn't quite as big of a problem because it had sun on it for most of the morning. But now that it's getting taller, this is a little bit shadier, and the Nandina likes that sun just a little bit more. So this probably isn't a good plant for this location. Now, what we need to do here is either choose a plant that can take a lesser light, but even then, what you're going to always have a problem because you've got a difference on one side of the plant than the other in the amount of light that it has. So if we want a vertical element right here, maybe something better would be to put a piece of statuary or maybe a trellis with a vine on it, something that will go vertically without trying to reach towards the sun. And we can fill this spot here and then maybe put a vine back here, and we'll still have a nice green element here, but it won't be trying to reach the sun all the time. There's also something right back here behind the Nandina that I wanted to show you that you need to pay attention to as well. Now, it's always good to have gutters, because if you don't have gutters, then all of that water is going to go into your bed. But you can see right back here, we've got a shady spot, and this is absolutely bone dry back here. And even though the rest of our bed is swimming, it's very dry. So if you were to plant some hostas or something back there in that shady area, it never gets any water from the rain. No matter where the rain comes in from, this never gets any water. So you're going to have to look at irrigating that. And you might even have that problem right now. If you notice that some of your plants seem to be wilting, check and see if they're under the eave of your house and they're not getting water from all the rains that we've been having. Now, these are just a few of the problems that I'm going to get to address in my own yard, and I'm actually looking forward to this because it's going to be fun to be able to put some new plants in here. But before I start poking plants in the ground, I want to make sure that the conditions are just right.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.